Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, like somehow everything became your fault? Maybe you started the conversation calmly. Maybe you were simply trying to explain how something hurt you. But by the end of it, you were the one apologizing. You started questioning your own memory, your own emotions, even your own reality. Manipulation often doesn't look aggressive or obvious. In fact, the most effective manipulation is subtle. And the scariest part, many people don't even realize it's happening to them. In this video, we're going to look at 7 signs someone may be secretly manipulating you, often without you even noticing. Manipulation is not always loud, angry, or dramatic. In many cases, it appears calm, sometimes even caring. But beneath the surface, there's a pattern of slowly shifting blame, distorting reality, and making another person feel responsible for things they didn't do. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward protecting your mental and emotional well-being. So here are 7 signs someone might be manipulating you. They twist your words. One common tactic manipulators use is twisting what you say. You might say something simple like explaining how you feel about a situation, but somehow the conversation gets turned around. Suddenly, your words mean something completely different. The manipulator may say things like, "That's not what you said earlier," or, "So you're saying this is all my fault," even when you never said that. Over time, this can make you hesitate to speak honestly, because you start worrying that anything you say will be used against you. 2, they make you feel guilty. Constantly, manipulators are experts at using guilt, even when you've done nothing wrong. You may notice that every disagreement somehow ends with you feeling responsible for their emotions. They might say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or "I guess I'm just a terrible person then." Instead of addressing the real issue, the conversation becomes about making you feel bad. And once guilt enters the conversation, it becomes much harder to defend yourself. 3, they deny things they clearly said. Another powerful manipulation tactic is denial. You may remember a conversation clearly, but when you bring it up, the other person insists it never happened. They might say, "I never said that," or "You're remembering it wrong." Over time, repeated denial can make someone question their own memory. This tactic is often part of a larger pattern known as gaslighting, and it can be incredibly damaging. 4, they make you question your memory. Gaslighting goes even deeper than simple denial. The manipulator may repeatedly suggest that your perception of reality is unreliable. They might say things like, "You're imagining things," or "You're overthinking everything again." After hearing this enough times, people begin to doubt themselves. They start asking questions like, "Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I'm overreacting." And that doubt gives the manipulator more control. 5, they always become the victim. One of the clearest signs of manipulation is when someone constantly turns themselves into the victim, even when they were the one who caused the problem. You may try to explain how something hurt you, but somehow the conversation flips. Now they're the one who feels attacked. Now they're the one who feels mistreated. This tactic is closely related to something called DARVO: deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. And it's designed to shift the entire narrative. 6, they isolate you from others. Manipulators often try to weaken the support system around their target. They might criticize your friends or family. They may say things like, "Your friends don't really care about you," or "They're a bad influence." At first it might seem like concern, but over time it can slowly push you away from the people who might notice what's happening. And isolation makes manipulation much easier. 7, everything somehow becomes your fault. Perhaps the most exhausting sign of manipulation is when everything becomes your responsibility. No matter what happens, the blame eventually lands on you. Arguments become about your reactions, problems become about your behavior, And slowly you start carrying the emotional weight of every conflict, even when you did nothing wrong. Why manipulation is hard to notice. One of the reasons manipulation is so difficult to recognize is that it rarely happens all at once. Instead, it appears slowly. At first, the behavior might seem small or insignificant. A comment here, a subtle criticism there. But over time, these small moments begin to form a pattern where your confidence slowly weakens, where your opinions feel less valid, where your feelings are constantly questioned. And by the time someone realizes what's happening, the manipulation has already become part of the relationship. That's why learning to recognize these patterns early is so important, because the earlier you notice them, the easier it becomes to protect yourself. A powerful reminder. It's also important to remember something many people forget. Manipulation is not a sign that you are weak. In fact, manipulators often target people who are empathetic, patient, and willing to understand others. People who try to communicate, people who try to fix problems instead of walking away. Those qualities are not weaknesses, they are strengths. But when someone repeatedly uses those strengths against you, it creates an unhealthy dynamic. And recognizing that dynamic is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional space. Manipulation thrives in confusion. The more someone doubts their own thoughts, memories, and emotions, the easier they become to control. But recognizing these patterns changes everything. Once you can see manipulation clearly, it loses much of its power. Because awareness creates boundaries, and boundaries protect your peace. If any of these signs feel familiar, remember this. You are not responsible for someone else's manipulation, and understanding these behaviors is the first step toward breaking free from them.